Hi everyone. So I'm Michaela, and today I'm going to be talking about two books that I read this semester that fall under the same category. I feel like this is a category that everyone says we should talk about, but then nobody really wants to talk about. So that's what I'm going to do today, and that topic is mental health. So the first book that I am going to talk about today is the first or second book that I read throughout this semester, and it is called What Made Maddie Run by Kate Fagan, who is an ESPN W columnist. Hold on. Sorry, something popped up on my computer and I didn't know what it was. So, anyway, it says the secret struggles and tragic death of an all American teen. And so, basically, quick little synopsis of Madison Holleran. She lived in New Jersey, she lived in like North Jersey. She was an All American in both track and soccer. So I knew of her just through the sports world and like high school and stuff. So she got a scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania to run track. And then the second semester, like the beginning of her second semester, she committed suicide by jumping off of a parking deck in Philadelphia, where the school is. And so basically, it was like all over the news. It was this huge thing because it was like she jumped off a parking deck on like the 12th floor. So Kate Fagan decided to write a little like smaller clip about it, I guess. And then everyone loved it. And so eventually it became this book. So the one really great thing about What Made Maddie Run is that it's so, like, you feel like you knew Madison Holleran by the time you're done reading this. It's so heartbreaking. It's so tragic. It's so emotional. But the really cool thing about how Kate Fagan wrote this story is it's really not like dry. Like, you're reading it and you're not like, oh my gosh, this is so depressing. Like, I need to stop reading it. It's like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening in this world. And like, I want to learn more about it. So Kate Fagan is amazing, and what she did was she made it like really interactive, I guess you could say. Like, you really feel like you knew her. So amazing. I don't know what just happened. Why is my screen black? Oh, okay. So like there's text messages in this story. Like this page that I just flipped to is text messages between her and Will. I don't know who that is, but yeah, there's just like text messages in here and emails between like her soccer coaches and her track coaches and all that stuff. And then there's also like pictures. So this is when they won a state championship in high school. And like all of her pictures are in there and stuff. So it just like takes such a serious topic and is able to talk about her life and like her struggles and all the things that like went wrong in her life and how she actively tried to fix them, but it just like wasn't enough. And Kate Fagan also taps into like other people. So it's not just about Madison Holleran, it's more about like how other people like heard her story and decided to be like, "Oh my gosh, like this happened to me too." Like one of the examples is this basketball player, and I don't remember if it was her or if it was like someone she knew, just because I read it a really long time ago. But it's sorry, my mom just texted me and it popped up on my computer and now I'm distracted. But it's what was I going to say? Oh, this basketball player from the University of Colorado Boulder, and how she tried to kill herself when she was there because she just like hated it so much. She was so miserable. Her like her mental health was just so weak and she just felt like she didn't have a way out, but she survived, and her story is also in this book. And I just think it's really interesting to see how people related to Madison and how the survivors always, always, always say, like, I'm so glad I survived. Like, they are in such a dark place, and then, like, something happens, and they're like, I'm so happy that I didn't actually die. And it's just, like, so unfortunate that that didn't happen to Madison. So there were two quotes that were in the book that, like, really stood out to me. So one of them was, like, before the book actually started. It was in the author's note, and it said, Some stories simply touch us more deeply as they reach right into our hearts, settle there, and never leave. And I feel like that is really this book. Like, this was a book that I knew even before I started reading it that I needed to pick it up and like buy my own copy because I knew that I would read it multiple times. And it's true because I'm probably going to read it this summer. And then the second quote is more of a statistic. I don't exactly remember where Kate Fagan got this from, but it says it in the book. One study found that a high school student today likely deals with as much anxiety as a psychiatric patient in the 1950s. And like, that's just really scary. And I feel like now there's so many people that struggle who feel like they can't get the help that they need. And I know like the University of Pennsylvania is a very, or was a very high, had a very high suicide rate compared to other colleges, which is really scary. But they put in Madison Holleran's law to help fix that. And honestly, like, this is just one of those books where it says on the back that it's a compassionate and frank look at depression and the social pressure faced by many college students as seen through the eyes of one young woman. And honestly, like, this book is, you see every aspect of a normal teenage college student or high school student, because like they talk about her high school life too and how she was pretty and she was popular and she had all these friends and she was a state champion and she was an All-American. Like, she was like she was like a poster child for someone who just like loved their life. But behind, social media does a really good job of hiding that. And I feel like that's also another reason why mental health is looked over, because you can be like, oh, their life looks perfect, so it probably is. But that's just like never the case. And Madison's story is really a good example of that. So I do highly recommend everyone read this book. In one of my blog posts, I wrote a review on this story and I hyperlinked a bunch of things. So if you want to get the book or learn more about it, that's where you can find it. So that's the first book. So the second book that I'm going to talk about really quick, probably faster than the other one because I just hit like end record and it was 7 minutes long. So the second book that I'm going to talk about is Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson. And I don't have the copy with me, so I'm going to like put a picture here really fast. So Winter Girls was definitely more of a hard read, and it was much more dense and much more depressing and much more dry compared to What Made Maddie Run. Honestly, not that I didn't like it as much, but it was just harder for me to read. I don't know if maybe because I had more of a personal connection to What Made Maddie Run just because I knew of her before she passed away. But Winter Girls was about two teenagers, Leah and Cassie, and hold on. Okay, Cassie is, sorry, I had to fact check my names. So Leah learns one day that her childhood best friend, who she grew up like doing everything with, had killed herself because she had really bad mental health. She just like was anorexic and bulimic, and she just one day it took over her body and she didn't survive. So I guess they had some sort of falling out in between the time that they were best friends and the time that Cassie's life ended. So it kind of talks about that. And the way that this book is written is also really unique. Like with What Made Maddie Run, it had text messages, it had emails, it had pictures, it had like interviews with her friends, her family, her coaches, like all that stuff. But Winter Girls was more of a diary, which was cool because it was in more first person. The lens was like directly on the girl who was struggling. And I thought that part was really interesting just because sometimes you get more of a clear focus with a narrator who is feeling all the emotions that like you are supposed to feel. So Leah she also struggles with mental health, and she is anorexic, and she has all of these problems that no one in her family can really help her with. So throughout the book, I don't want to like give it all away, but throughout the book, you see her lie, and you see her be like, I'm fine. You see her say that she's getting better. You see her family act like she's getting better. Her family kind of doesn't take the steps to really, really helping her that they should have. And like, not maybe that they should have. Like, I'm not going to tell them how to parent their kid, but you're able to see the negative effects of not getting the help that you really need. And I think that is one of the major takeaways from this, is that like, if you know someone who's struggling with mental health, or you are aware that you are struggling with mental health before it like completely takes over your mind and like your body, because that's what happens, it's really, really important to like get the help that you need so that you don't end up like Cassie in this book. So let me read the quotes, because I pulled quotes from both books. So the quotes from this story say, "There is no magic here, no making it go all the way forever. There are only small steps upward, an easier day, an unexpected laugh, and a mirror that doesn't matter anymore." And then the second quote is, "They yell at me because I can't see what they see. Nobody can explain to me why my eyes work differently than theirs, and nobody can make it stop." So the second quote really talks about how mental health took over Leah's body, and like she was so thin and she was so weak, like physically, emotionally, mentally, like her body was just deteriorating, and she continued to think that she like wasn't skinny enough, that she wasn't pretty enough, that she wasn't just like enough in general for society, which is super, super sad. So to wrap up this video, because I feel like it's getting super long, I just feel like these are two books that as a high school teacher, you want to encourage your students to read, because I know like I'm in college and I'm reading them, but if What Made Maddie Run had come out in high school, I would have 100% read it. And probably same with Winter Girls. I just feel like I wasn't introduced to it early enough. And I feel like that's one of the problems, is that like I was never introduced or encouraged to read books that talked about students struggling. It was more like, we're going to read super old books, or we're going to read books about like happy endings. And I feel like you can learn a lot about this, whether you are struggling or not, or whether you are directly, what is the word I'm looking for? Whether you're directly like influenced or impacted, that's the word I'm looking for. Whether you're directly impacted by mental health, then I just feel like these are really good books to read, because they give you knowledge about the life and like the characters through this story, and you're able to like really connect to them and relate to them, and hopefully it speaks about the topic that nobody wants to talk about. And so those are the two books. They are probably my two favorite books that I read this semester, which I just think is so interesting, because I really never would have picked up books about mental health. Like I didn't come into this class being like, oh, I want to expand my knowledge on that topic. Like that was absolutely not the case at all, but I am really glad that I did. So basically, these are just really great books to read. And if you're looking to expand your summer reading list, then I highly recommend each of those. So that's it. Thanks for watching this video. See ya.